one of the things I often talk about in my class is that, we get happiness wrong in part because our intuitions are a little bit messed up, right? We think friendships just kind of happen, so it should be just very easy. So if I have to put work in, I'm kind of doing something wrong. But I think to kind of follow up on Bob's point, I think we're also not very compassionate with ourselves, right? Let's say you go to a gathering, I'm meeting folks at my yoga class and I want to chat with them. I can get very harsh on myself, like, oh, I'm just not that interesting. People aren't going to like me. This is what psychologists call the liking gap, right? We assume other people won't like us or that they aren't interested, but in fact, they're much more interested than we expect. And so part of this work that we're doing on ourselves is, I think, gaining a little bit of compassion, but also overcoming our biases, our biases that it does take work. That's a fallacy that it doesn't take work. It's going to take a little bit of intention. The second thing is no, people are going to like you in ways that you don't expect. And also just this idea that we need to realize that, it's going to be a little bit anxiety provoking when you start to talk to somebody for the first time. There's a bit of a startup cost, but you got to overcome that startup cost. And I think this gets back to what Bob was saying before, for my students, I watch, that startup cost of a new conversation with somebody in the dining hall. It's a little hard, but it's just so much easier to pick up your phone and not be bored that way and scroll through and get almost what feels like a NutraSuite of social connection. If you're looking at some feed on Instagram, it feels like you're kind of getting socially connected, but you're not getting the good stuff that Bob's work shows is going to really matter later in life. And so I think we need to work with ourselves to overcome that startup cost. And I preach to my students about this, but I also experience it myself. I was just at a party recently and there's a bunch of folks that I didn't know. And it was like, oh, there's the cat. I'll just pet the cat. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be at this event because I'm supposed to get to know people and talk to them. Right. So you have to be yes, startup cost is hard, but I'll kind of engage with that anxiety just a little bit to get the benefits that are on the other side of meeting people.